Hello there, I am the CCG Collector, and here I've got a number of Wyvern booster packs, as well as a few Wyvern starter decks. Now, despite Wyvern having a fairly short print run, it nonetheless consisted of 5 different sets. But despite it consisting of 5 different sets, it can still be fairly difficult to tell which set a given card comes from. This is because Wyvern is what I would call a game of reprints. The whole print run of the game consisted of about 420 or so cards. Of those, 135 cards, nearly a full third of it, occurred and were available in 1, 2, 3 different sets. An additional 104 cards were available in 2 different sets, and 38 cards besides those showed up in their own pair of sets. Now, why is this? What makes these sets so similar, and if they are so similar, what makes them each different? We'll start with the Wyvern Premier Limited Edition. This was the very first release of the game, released in January of 1995. It came in boosters and starter decks, and it had 137 different cards. I say 136 because 2 of the cards shared that 136 number. The ultra-rare gold and silver Wyvern cards. 135 of the cards in the set could be found in any booster pack, any starter deck, without too much difficulty. But the final 2 were ultra-rare, and only 175 of each of them were printed. In other words, you would have to open roughly 1,000 of these booster packs before you would hit an ultra rare. Yeah, some card games call a card ultra rare if you need to open 60 to find one. Wyvern says 1,000. Now, I've personally accounted for, if you'll excuse the expression, 6 of each of them. I've seen pictures of 3 pairs of the cards, of the gold and the silver ones together, and I know that an additional 3 of each were offered as prizes or giveaways or something of the sort. So that means there are 169 of each out there still, maybe. Maybe they're in these boxes, these packs, who can say. But what I do know is that they are exceedingly rare. The other thing that makes Wyvern Premier noteworthy is that due to an error in the place where these cards were printed off, it is possible to find cards with Wyvern backs, but fronts from the Magic the Gathering Fallen Empires expansion. These are Wyvern misprints, not Magic misprints, and as such they only occur in Wyvern products. You won't find any Wyvern-backed cards in a Magic the Gathering Fallen Empires booster pack. As far as I know, they only showed up in the starter decks, but I definitely know that you can only find those misprints in Premier Limited Edition. Once Wyvern moved on to Limited Edition, in April of 1995, they took care of all that. They got rid of the misprints, they got rid of the ultra rares, in fact, and they replaced it with Wyvern Shadow rather than the gold or the silver Wyvern. And they added an additional 103 cards beyond that one. So if this set had 136 cards, Wyvern Limited had 239. Again, like its predecessor, this came in booster packs and starter decks. 15 cards in this one, 60 in this one, just like Premier Limited. There were also some card corrections, some card updates, and then after that, in July of 1995, Wyvern released its first expansion set, Phoenix. This was the first time, besides Premier, that it had 90 completely new, never before seen, never before printed cards. Unlike these two, Wyvern Phoenix only came in 2 rarities, common and uncommon. So an 8-card booster pack would have 6 commons and 2 uncommons. There were differing levels of each rarity, which is common in older games like this. So you'd have common 1s, common 2s, common 3s. And put simply, a common 1 is A common 3 is 3 times as likely to show up in a booster pack as a common 1 is. An uncommon 2 is twice as likely as an uncommon 1. So this didn't have rares, but it did have 4 uncommon 1 rarity cards, which were essentially the rares of the set. And once we get to Wyvern Kingdom, we're back to reprinting cards. Not only does Wyvern Kingdom, which was released in January of 1996 and came in boosters and starters, very similar looking, starting to see a trend. Not only did it reprint every single card from the Wyvern Limited Edition, but it also took 40 of the Phoenix cards and made them available as 1 card each in the Wyvern Kingdom starter decks. You cannot find the Phoenix reprints in booster packs, only in these starter decks. And finally, in April of 1996, we reach the Chameleon expansion set. The only set in the game with 90 truly unique, never seen anywhere else cards. Same deal as Phoenix, 6 commons, 2 uncommons in a given booster pack, and 4 of them were uncommon ones, or the rares of the set. So, now you know all of the expansions in Wyvern. How do you tell them apart? Well, Wyvern Premier was fairly basic. It had its standard card frame, it had no set icon, which would ordinarily appear here, and it had no dot next to the card number. All the text was in capital letters, but besides that, this is the standard look of the card. Once we get to Premier, very similar. Everything is the same, text is the same format, picture is identical, but no icon still, but there is a dot next to the card number. So that proves that a card was from limited edition. Not Premier, but limited edition. Phoenix had a set icon. It had a little phoenix, basically a silhouette of the phoenix on the pack. But other than that, there was nothing that distinguished it from any of the rest. No dot next to the number, no change in format. Wyvern Kingdom had no dot next to the number, but it had an icon of a wyvern on it, and that's how you knew it was Kingdom. You'll notice across all these sets, the copyright date remains at 1994. They did not change it depending on the set like a lot of card games do. So you can't tell from there. So Kingdom has this dragon icon. Other than that, again, looks very similar to the others. And finally, Chameleon. Chameleon is the first time that you have something a little bit different. We have a Gothic C as the set icon. No dot or anything by the card number, but you'll notice that the text down here is in proper capitalization now. It's not everything capitalized. They have lowercase letters. So that makes Chameleon cards distinct. And why did we have to see so many reprints? Well, each time a new set came around that reprinted some cards, they made changes. They made changes to the text, they made changes to the cost in some cases. Take, for example, this card, Magnetic Field. Now this first card, you'll see they look very similar. This first card is from Premier Limited. You can tell because there's no icon and no dot next to the number. The second one is from Limited Edition. A dot next to the number. It's hard to see on the purple background, but I assure you it's there. And the Kingdom Edition. No dot, but the icon. You'll notice that the text is changing from card to card as it gets reprinted. And you'll notice one other rather crucial thing for this particular card. In Premier Limited, the card only costs 1 gold piece to play. Beyond that, in Limited Edition and Kingdom, it costs 2 gold pieces to play. The interesting thing about Wyvern is that all of these cards are tournament legal. And if you include a Magnetic Field in your deck that only has a cost of 1 gold, you can play it for 1 gold. They would let you do that if you had the original proper card for it. So that's the difference between the sets. The Phoenix reprints in Wyvern Kingdom also have this Wyvern icon. They do not have a Phoenix icon or anything like that. So there it is. 5 sets, total print run of about 15 months or so for my calculations. And it may seem a little bit rough that we have so many reprinted cards across Wyvern, but if you think about it, 15 months, that's a little over a year. You go to another contemporary card game, Magic the Gathering, had Alpha, had Beta, had Revised, had Unlimited, and those are all largely the same cards, reprinted, reprinted, reprinted. So what Wyvern did is not necessarily uncommon for the time, it's just it didn't last long enough for us to see what could have been besides reprints. So that's it. Now you know how to tell the different cards apart. Now you know what there is to find in Wyvern. And thank you all for watching. I am the CCG Collector, and I will see you next time.